Hello everyone, this is Alpha Omega. Today, I want to take a look at MP Materials. It's a rare earth company. And next, for the first time on my channel, I'll be talking about USA Rare Earth, whose ticker is USAR. Let's take a look at what kind of company this is. Both are rare earth companies, and the reason I thought I should talk about rare earths is because when you look at the news, it's impossible not to talk about rare earths. These days, if you look at it, the US keeps pressuring and confronting China. So what did China pull out? They played the rare earth card. So they said they wouldn't sell rare earths to the US. So who was shocked by this? Elon Musk was shocked. He said, hey, we need to make our humanoid robots. But if we can't get rare earth magnets from China, we're totally out of luck. Not just Tesla, but all car manufacturers would be hit hard. And rare earth elements themselves are considered critical security materials. So that's why they're classified as such. That's why they're used in fighter jets, in radars, and even in the motors of wind power plants. Basically, they're used in so many places. If China stops selling these rare earth elements, there will inevitably be a lot of problems in the US in many different ways. So now, Trump is telling Zelensky, hey, the rare earths in your land, mascot. The reason he told them to bring the rare earths is because, from the US perspective, they're being heavily influenced by China right now. So Trump wants to reduce their dependence on China. That's why he's pressuring Zelensky to bring over those rare earths. And then, where else did Trump apply pressure? Most recently. You know Greenland, right? He said he wanted to buy Greenland. That's because Greenland is rich in natural resources, and Trump said he wanted to buy it to secure those resources. But it's not going well. Greenland opposed the idea. They said, we absolutely won't sell it. And, well, even if Trump were to buy land in Greenland, extracting resources from that land would require a huge investment. First of all, mining the land and extracting rare earth elements would have a significant environmental impact. Because the negative environmental impact is so great, it's seen as a bad idea. So this isn't easy either. And even if, let's say, this somehow gets approved, it would still take way too long. It's been at least 5 years since MP Materials started mining the land. It's been over 5 years already. When is this actually going to happen? After another 5 years, it'll be 2030. So, whether it's the rare earth elements in Ukraine that Zelensky is talking about, or the ones in Greenland, even if Trump manages to secure them right away, it's still extremely difficult to reduce dependence on China in the short term. Given that, it's only natural that attention is focused on MP Materials, which is currently mining rare earths, and USA Rare Earths, the company aiming to produce permanent magnets. Investors. All right, so let's take a look at the current situation of MP Materials. This data here was released on February 20th, 2025. So if you look here, this rare earth ore, just think of it as rocks. Just rocks that have been mined. They mined a lot of these rocks. There was a lot of mining, so the amount mined is about this much. Compared to last year, the volume increased a bit, but the downside is, what's not so good is the realized price. In other words, how much do they get when they sell this? Right now, it's $4,414 per ton, but the price is going down. The price is dropping. That's not good. From MP Materials' perspective, they've worked hard to mine these rocks, but when they go to sell them, the price has dropped. It's not good. There are a few reasons why this price is dropping. The first is the influence of China. China has such strong pricing power over rare earth elements that if they suddenly flood the market with rare earths, what happens to the supply? It increases. Then, of course, the price has no choice but to go down. So that's one possible reason. And what could be the second? Maybe demand for electric vehicles? So it's possible that demand has decreased. And then the third reason could be that because the price dropped so much, MP Materials might have decided not to sell. They might have chosen not to sell. So there are several reasons, but anyway, these are some of the main ones we can think of. Now next, don't they mine this rare earth layer? Then they produce neodymium praseodymium oxide. They process it, do primary processing. So they produce this now. This is their production. Compared to last year, they produced a significantly larger amount. And they also sold a huge amount. So their sales revenue probably increased a lot because of this. I'll talk more about this in a bit. Next, the NdPr selling price did go down a bit. The reason for the drop in the selling price could be similar to this. But personally, I think it's because China's influence is just too strong right now. All right, so what we have here is the financials. Now, you can see the sales are coming in. Sales are really coming in. If you look here, you can see there's a bar like this. You see the bar, right? Now, this side is for magnet sales. These are permanent magnets. But right now, MP Materials isn't actually selling permanent magnets yet. So currently, there are no sales here. But I think these sales will probably start coming in next quarter or the quarter after that. So I personally think we'll have to wait a bit for sales in this area. What is this? It must be a rare earth orbit. It's either rare earth oxide or NdPr oxide. Sales from this reached about $230 million in 2024. And they're consistently investing in facility expansion. And then as for the permanent magnet facility that they haven't started selling from yet, they personally refer to it as the Independence Facility. So they call it an independent facility, and they're continuing to invest capital expenditures. Here, what they're saying is, we've hired over 100 people to make permanent magnets. So quite a bit of money has gone into this. You see the Independence Facility mentioned, right? They're saying that money is being invested here as well. And just like before, most of the costs are related to the construction of the Independence Facility, which started in May 2022. So it would be good to keep that in mind. All right, let's move on. What you're looking at now is this disc-shaped MdP oxide, which is an oxide, as they're saying. Usually, you see oxides like this, right? When oxides come out, what we do is something called molding. We mold it into a disc shape or sometimes into a rectangular block shape. When molding, we apply pressure. We apply pressure and also heat it to about 1000 degrees Celsius. That's how we create the pressure. That's how it's made. After molding, we then perform a process called magnetization. I'm sorry for explaining this so suddenly, but I'm going to explain it to you in case you want to know. What is this? Just because we apply pressure doesn't mean it becomes a magnet. Only when we generate a very strong magnetic field nearby does it finally become a permanent magnet. After that, it's coated to finish it off. So this is how permanent magnets are made, and this photo shows an MdP oxide which has been molded into a disc shape. That's how we should understand it. Next, you see these raw-looking magnets here. Seems like we've moved on to the next stage. Here. So they've made these kinds of magnets, and if you look below, you can see that they've taken it a step further and produced permanent magnets that can be used in cars at their own independent facility. The photo is showing us that. So what they're talking about now is producing 1,000 tons per year. But during the conference call, they also said, we can actually produce up to 2,000 tons at this facility. So I think we can understand it as meaning that potentially they could produce up to 2,000 tons. But this isn't actually a huge amount. For example, I looked it up, and in 2018, China produced 130,000 tons of permanent magnets. But what MP Materials is producing right now is only about 2,000 tons. So that's a really small amount. That means it's going to take a lot of time to reduce our dependence on China in the future. Anyway, they're probably going to keep producing little by little and gradually increase the volume. Yes, I think it would be good for you all to understand it this way. And if you look at MP Materials' balance sheet right now, I personally think their cash is sufficient. They have about $850 million. Of course, they do have over $1 billion in debt that they need to pay back. However, as they mentioned in the recent conference call, the repayment dates for that debt have been extended to between 2026 and 2030. So you can understand it as meaning that they don't have any money. They need to pay back in the near future. Anyway, you can understand that their cash and cash equivalents at $850 million currently seem to be sufficient. So if you look here at MP Materials, I've brought up a brief excerpt from their conference call. What this means is their primary goal right now is to produce 1,000 tons per year. And what happens to those 1,000 tons? All of it will be sold to General Motors. And what they said was, within this same facility, they can scale up, they can ramp up to mass production, up to double the current capacity. You can do it. They explained that they could increase production up to 2 times. That's why I mentioned the 2,000 tons. And so, when you look at MP Materials, I hope you'll keep this in mind. I don't think you should look at MP Materials from a short-term perspective. In the short term, it seems like there will be a lot of volatility. Right now, depending on just a single comment from Trump or Xi Jinping, the stock price of MP Materials could see, really, big drops or big jumps as well. And so, when looking at MP Materials, I personally think that in the long run, well, even though there's still a long way to go before Trump's term ends, as long as Trump is in office, issues related to rare earth elements will keep coming up. So, and although we don't know who will be the next president after Trump, I think the US will steadily and over the long term work to reduce its dependence on China by increasing its own production of NdFeB permanent magnets. That's why I personally think MP Materials should be viewed from a long-term perspective. Think that about sums it up. Now, this is the first time I'm talking about this company. It's called USA Rare Earth, and their current goal is they're saying they're going to do mining as well. And then they're also saying they're going to produce permanent magnets. So the business model they're pursuing is very similar to MP Materials, but their cash reserves are currently in a pretty dire state. They only have $16.8 million. So before long soon, they're going to run out of cash. So they'll probably issue new shares or seek investment. So I think the reason they got listed on the NASDAQ this time is probably to raise funds like this, because by selling shares, they can bring in capital. So I think that's probably why they went public. Anyway, just keep in mind that they really don't have much money on hand in the materials they provided or sent out. They say that in 2026, they'll be able to sell these permanent magnets. That's what they're saying. So it's still a bit of a way off. They're even talking about producing up to 4,800 tons a year. This is something we need to take a closer look at. And as for the mining, they don't actually own it yet, but they're planning to mine it, and they're saying, if we really want to start mining, it could take 5 years, maybe even longer, like another 5 years. So they're actually talking about 2030. Well, honestly, I don't think we should have any hopes for this. Because, as I mentioned, they currently have about $13 million, but MP Materials spent $1 billion to build their mining and processing facilities. That means you need an enormous amount of money for this. So the mining project they're thinking about right now, honestly, let's say, is just not realistic at this point. So in my personal opinion, I think Erlania shouldn't bother with mining at all. If they just focus on making permanent magnets, maybe there's a bit of potential there. So if you look here, the facility they have is called the Menufemal Collided Facility. That's what they call it. They say the Stillwater facility is currently in Oklahoma, and they're planning to manufacture permanent magnets there. So as you can see, they're saying that they'll start trial operations or commissioning in early 2026. Right now, the factory engineering is underway. In other words, they're currently figuring out the structure of the plant and how it will operate, making some important decisions. They've also said that they've purchased and ordered the necessary magnet and finishing coating equipment for the facility. So right now, USA Rare Earth still has a long way to go. I've concluded that they also don't have enough money, so I don't think I'll be investing. What they're saying now is that their pilot plant will cost about $50 million. They're saying it's going to take $50 million just to run the plant. So they're talking about it here as well. They're basically saying, we're going to need a lot more money going forward. As you all know, when news like this comes out, the stock price is bound to plummet. So I think you should keep this in mind, but you never know. If by any chance a really big company decides to invest in a company like this, things could turn out differently. But for now, that's just wishful thinking. There hasn't been any news about it, so we shouldn't get our hopes up too much. All right, I think we can wrap things up like this. So, to sum up, the companies we looked at today, MP Materials and USA Rare Earth, basically, they don't have any money. That's why I'm not going to invest in them. And as for MP Materials, in the short term, I think it's going to be very volatile. It's going to be big. But personally, I think that in the long run, it will trend upward. So if the volatility causes a big drop in the short term, that could be a good buying opportunity, a good entry point. It would be great if you could take advantage of those opportunities. So today, we wrap things up with MP Materials and USA Rare Earth. I'll be back next time with more updates. Thank you for listening. Goodbye.